My name is Don Price from Atlassian, and I'm Atlassian's word futurist. But at Experts Unleashed, I want to do something different with you. I want to bring experts from their field to you. Experts that aren't going to talk about thought leadership or theory, but they're going to bring their lived experience, their pragmatic insights, and their stories to help you unleash your potential. So the format of this show is incredibly simple. It's all based on three things. Every single session we do with an expert and Experts Unleashed, we're going to have three chapters, three core things that they are famous for, where we go through the theory, we go through the practice, and we get them to share one insight that you can try. So listen in for the three chapters. Okay, folks, welcome to another episode of your favorite show, Experts Unleashed, a show where we take traditional thought leadership, we pop it out the window. There is no room for that in 2025. And instead, we bring experts in their field who give you their insights, their pragmatism, their knowledge, their lived experience that helps you be a better leader, a better husband, a better wife, a better whatever you want to be. Today on Experts Unleashed, we are diving into the fascinating and, let's be honest, sometimes confronting world of human behavior with someone who doesn't just read the room, I think she rewires it. Milo Wilkinson is a behavioral scientist with 2 master's degrees. She's got 7 degrees. Now, we have high achievers regularly on the show. I think 7 degrees might be the record. She's got a master's degree in forensic psychology. She's got 1 in neuroscience. So she can understand why you're acting weird and explain it with science, which I think we've all needed for a while. Milo has coached elite athletes. She advises execs from Fortune 500s to ASX darlings. She worked with everyone from emergency service to military leaders. Anyone with a brain and a pulse, Milo will help them just rediscover who they are, why they work, how they work. So buckle up. When Milo's in the room, psychological safety is real, but so is radical honesty. Someone who just speaks from the heart. Someone who knows so much about the mind, but speaks so much about the heart. Milo, welcome to the show.
That is the best bio I've ever heard for my geeky self. You almost made me sound cool.
You are like super cool. It's funny because I always read a person's bio. I'm like, that's super polished and lovely and true. But like, what's the real story behind the person? There's so much to you. I was like, let's absolutely bring it. So Milo, first of all, thank you. When we host the show of Experts Unleashed, we talk about one of the concepts we use at Atlassian, which is called My User Manual. You buy a TV, it comes with a user manual, right? You buy a stereo user manual, hire a human, no user manual. So we don't know how to work with each other. We shared the idea of My User Manual with you. You picked the category of communicate. Tell us why communicate is so important to you and how does it manifest for you in your day-to-day existence?
I think that there's that surface. I have this communication manual, you could say, and there are 5 layers to it. For example, when you get home of an afternoon, you say to my husband, "How was your day?" His response might be, "Fine." So I think, okay, I've asked. There's obviously something that you've got going on here. I've ticked the box in asking that question, go and have a shower and go about doing me. If I went to the second layer and I said, "Really? Tell me about your day." And his second layer might give a little bit more, but not the whole magic. So he might say, "Everything went wrong today." I might say, "I'm sorry to hear that," and go about my shower and go about my business and go, "Right, tempting, tempting." Third layer is, "Tell me about your day." Now, I'm then about to get some magic, right? I'm about to dive in. And when you're married to a profiler, there's no fine. No one's
I was
leaving
gonna
the work.
say, yeah. I've never met the guy, and with all due respect, I feel for him already. He's gonna second guess every answer he gives.
Well, if I divorced Dylan, he'd get my whole family. Like that's just he's getting the majority of the network. But layer number 4 is the questioning. Tell me what happened, what's going on, what do you think that's really about, how does that bother you? And number 5 is just that sharing of silence because you're feeling the pain. Communication is more than how was your day? And when you work in my world, and this works particularly well for teenagers, by the way, when you work in my world, you've got to go to levels 3, 4, and 5, or there's no
Right.
point.
Because that surface level is the in the club world, I call it like the theatre and the dance. You do like how
Yes.
you play good, you like and you dance, but you don't learn anything. And
No,
then you've got to cherry
actually,
pick where it's all
busy.
yeah, you're like, actually, they're really like, how are you and what is going on? And that layer of text.
But we are a species of the dance now. You know, when was the last time I bar the word busy from my life? Penny Lacasso taught me that, right? I ban the word busy. How's your day busy? It's the most dismissive word that there ever was. And we all use it out of default, but it is almost like, please don't come at me. I don't care about what you've got going on, and you don't care about me, and I don't care to go any further. It is the new weather conversation.
You're like, "Oh,
It's
it's
the
chilly outside." Yeah, a bit windy too. You're like,
yeah,
"That was a complete waste
yeah,
of
yeah,
oxygen
sun is
and
shining,
comfort as
wind
well."
is blowing. That's right. So, I prefer that we're not doing the busy word. We're not doing the surface level word. We're having a real conversation, and you can do that quickly. It doesn't have to be a whole life commitment with a bottle of wine.
Yeah, and just like giving a shit about the answer, not just doing the dance. Milo, I know you work in some pretty sort of hectic environments. Yeah, I've spoken to you before about your wonderful love of mansplaining and some of the male-dominated environments that you exist in. Like when you think about your ridiculously huge brain and your ridiculously huge heart that you have, how do you go about engaging like in a little matter of communication? Some of the egos that you must interact with.
Yeah. I have a really great example recently. I mean, I travel to the Middle East every few weeks. And I've got a few projects over there, but one of my projects is really teaching men how to interact with women because they quite simply don't know. Women in the workforce is an uncommon thing in the Middle East and navigating their way. So you think that it should be this intrinsic knowledge, and the truth is it isn't. Culturally, universally, the whole lot, it's not. So I was doing this behavioral leadership, which is behaving of self, behaving of others, awareness, emotional intelligence, belonging, all of that. And this gentleman walked into the room and he had his finger out, the finger weapon, and he walked in and he was in my face, right? This in my face. Now, I find that amusing in a couple of ways. Number one, I'm a 6 foot Polynesian. You want to put your finger on my face, when I've got 14 sisters I've grown up with. I mean, you are a brave person, right? Secondly, he's in my face because he found anything that I represented to be a grand old waste of time, and he wanted me to know that. Now, firstly, I move through my ego and through my reaction, which is hard, but, Viktor Frankl has taught me to do that, man's search for meaning, and it's like the behavior that we see is purely symptomatic to a greater underlying cause. So let me hunt for that very, very quickly, because right now the behavior that I'm seeing is this rant and rave, dismissive, I'm angry, here I am, I'm busy, you're wasting my time. And I quite calmly simply said, this is a behavioral leadership program. And right now, what this tells me is that you've got a fair bit to learn. So I'd actually like you to sit down the front and you can be my pal for the rest of the day because I think the learning is going to most benefit you. Now, it's very calm, very kind, no sarcasm. Well, like I'm hinting at sarcasm here, but there wasn't any. And the very fact that I've made it very clear to a room full of people, we are in a behavior leadership program, and that isn't it. That is not it through this. I've seen all kinds of behavior in every element of my career. What I don't do and what I work with is calling it in that moment, not losing my mind, not minimizing anyone. In that moment, we're going to communicate a level of discomfort here, and I always think it's not what you say, it's how you choose to say it to anybody, and that's what I'm there to
Well,
train and
I think with all due respect, Milo, in your case, I think it's both because the the intelligence that you have, you could have chosen to take him down, right? You could have played the game of top trumps. I am smarter than you. I will take you down. But then no one benefits from that. He just gets defensive. You're proven right, but like that's not the end goal. This is going, hey, metaphorically, I'm going to put my arm around you and go, you're in the right room. This course is exactly for you, but I need you to participate in it, and so I'm going to bring you into it. That
yes.
it's almost like the 5 layers that you talked about with your husband. Like, if you take the superficial layer, we go back and forwards, get it down to there's clearly something else going on here. Let's get to that and solve that root cause.
Yeah. And what's going I mean, he's a very busy man, right? And not feeling completely and utterly accepted in his role or his function. And the only way that he's ever been taught to do that is to fight change in any way. And we're not afraid of change at all as a species. We're afraid of the loss that change represents. So I'm just this massive 6-foot representation of loss. At the time, he thought it was time that he was losing, but the truth is, it's that saving face, it's that charisma, it's that woman standing in the room, sitting and saying, "This is how you're going to behave." I mean, who the hell am I to say that to a Middle Eastern culture? But that's what I'm there to do.
It's also like you've just summarized like every sort of enterprise organizational change program that I'm experiencing right now with various companies, which is like it's not the change program that's the problem. It's the loss aversion. It's the loss of status, the loss of role, the loss of income, the loss of anything, and that's
Yeah.
causing some pretty messed up behaviors.
Well, hugely. If we look at the way that the brain is wired, if we bring in the neuroscience and the psychology as partnerships that are forever in bed with one another, you know, the reality is that 73 to 75% of our brain baseline is hardwired for negativity. So, say 25% of our brain sees positivity. Now, if somebody announces any change, we're not sitting there, maybe a small part of a quarter of the population sit there and go, "Yes, change, let's do this." No, 3 quarters of the population are literally going to this default status of what am I about to lose, what's about to change. Even I was working with an organization who had built the most incredible $20 million office. I mean, they're working in some 1973 built brick, red built number that no one works with. $20 million business, own gym, parking facilities, a whole lot. And when they announced that we've built this, here's the virtual reality, you can put it on, you can have a look. The loss was epic, absolutely epic, and that's all people could see, and when one person felt the loss, it becomes this manifestation of reality for all, right? So it's the spread of the war, and we're naturally wired to go to uncertainty, risk, and loss. That's why organizations without a reconciliation of change conversation, which can only be 18 months of your change plan is a waste of time.
Christ. Yeah, it makes some sense when you said like that. If we go back to that conversation in the classroom, the Middle Eastern conversation, is there a is there like a methodology or a logic you've got of how you go from the reaction? I feel like a lot of us right now are order reacting, and we're yelling at the person and telling them they're wrong. You didn't do that. You kind of paused and you went through a like, what's the alternate path? Is there a logic there that you follow that gets you to that calmer, more inclusive, accessible path?
Yeah, well, the human condition of acceptance. So there's 3 ways: awareness, acceptance, and change. So we are hopefully mostly aware of the way that we react to anything, change, disruption, the whole lot. We accept that that is our point of reaction. We accept that that is our default system. And then we have that third decision of change. Now, on top of that is that dynamic of the 3 points of success. The relationships I hold must be of value. Even with a stranger, there must be a value. The attitude in which I take is the only thing that I can choose in my day. I can choose how I want to show up. I'm in charge of it and the purpose in which I live my life with. So when I brush my teeth of a morning, I ask myself my number. It's an intrinsic feeling. What's my number? 10 being one-way ticket to Barbados with a lottery win, 1 being walkiest day of my life. And this morning when I brushed my teeth, I'm like, "Oh, it's a 6, right? I'm jet lagged badly. My husband's gone away. My kids are terrorists. Like it's the whole it's going. I'm like a 6. So I'm brushing my teeth. I'm like, what's the number 6? Okay, great. What do you want to be by the end of the day? Well, we can't be a 10. Not
No,
always. Sometimes we can, but I
what are real with it. Yeah.
want to be one better than why I started. So the next question is, what are you prepared to do for that? So my prepared to do for that was something so simple. I've got plants on my balcony that are dead and awful, and I stare at them because my balcony's outside my bedroom. And I said, "What's gonna get me to a 7 today is to rip those plants out of that pot." That's it. So this morning at 10:15, I ripped the plants out of the pot, put them in a bag, and that was it. And I'm like, when I do that activity, I say, "What's my number now?" I'm like, "I'm actually an 8." I exceeded my expectations of my own thinking. So I'm in charge of that. We are so hijacked by our life, but just a 2-minute exercise of saying, what is it that you wanna be at the end of the day, and what will you do to get it? And it cannot be send a report, reply to an email, ring the boss.
No, no,
No,
no, no. Something intrinsic.
exactly, that's it. So I ripped those plants out, those dead, ugly olive trees that can't survive a second in sea air. and they're gone now, and I'm a dead set 8. Now put lamb shanks on for dinner, and I think I'm gonna be the 9 or 10.
Right. Yeah. Drop a red wine and we're off to Barbados. But it's funny that because what you call that, and again, I'm getting a similar sentiment. There's a lot of sort of coaching and mentoring I do, and it's like people have lost some sense of agency, and
Yeah.
so they become
Yeah.
the victim and they're blaming around them, therefore justifying their reaction. This is going. I mean, what you just explained, we're in control of way more than we give ourselves credit for. And when you take that ownership, like admitting it, I'm a 6. I'm not. I don't wake up a 10. That's not human, right? I wake up a 6. But you know what? If I want to agree that I'm going to have an average night, I'll stay a 6. But I suffer that pain, or I want to be a 7, and here's one thing within my control that can do that. It's quite empowering. Milo, you picked 3 absolutely belting topics that I want to get into. We've got one around invisible brain rules. I love this. Why smart people still make irrational decisions. That's a whole show in itself. And belonging beyond safety. So the next evolution of leadership, which I cannot think of a better time right now than that topic. And where to put your mind, your body will follow.
Yes.
We had Dr. Gemma King talked about a similar thing on one of our shows recently, and I still go back to that as a reference point of that interconnectedness is a fascinating thing for us to learn about. So let's start with invisible brain rules. Why smart people still make irrational decisions. Like, talk to us about that topic and how should a layman try and understand this?
Well, if we have a look at what I said before, that our brain, 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, we're aware of less than 9% of those thoughts. This is standard stuff. 73 to 75% of the brain is naturally born to be negative, right? So we're not supposed to be sitting in these rooms with beautiful indigenous art behind us. We're supposed to be sitting in caves of 15 people or less and not being eaten by what sits outside that cave. So we're constantly in this state of risk and this state of uncertainty. Sometimes we have this need or this thought of, I'm going to live a better life. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to do all of those types of things, which nothing changes, right? Nothing changes. Now, I'll give you an example. When I did my neuroscience degree at Harvard, and I did an experiment with 250 people, split them in half, group A, group B. What were we doing? All had the same desire: fitness, diet, and health. So what do we get them? Gym memberships, training plans, the whole lot. Group A, gym clothes on, plan in hand, day 1, off they went to the gym. Let's do this. 40 minutes a day, 4 days a week. That's all the commitment was. Group B, same thing. Plans in hand, memberships, here we go. But they didn't have to go to the gym physically. They went there here, right here. And their gym workout was what their calves and their body would feel like on the 16-minute and 2-second mark of a treadmill on the incline of 6. How their shoulders would burn on this row machine at the 5-minute and 2-second point. And this is how they went. And the same time that they were doing that, they had to build that mindset of, what will I be wearing? What will I be feeling? How far can I run? How many steps can I go up without feeling puffed? All of that stuff. So 30 days, this is how it went. Group B, at the 30-day point, had an 8% muscle mass increase. They hadn't gone anywhere. 8% muscle mass increase. Group A, 9% muscle mass increase in those 30 days. So group A, in the nature of the experiment, were like, I want to join group B. And I said, well, no, hold on. The rules will change, because we're going to put you in the gym now. For the next 90 days, you're all going to go to the gym. 90 days later, let's look at the stats. Group A, 9% left in the experiment. We had a 91% dropout. Why? No skin in the game. Free stuff. Weren't committed. Nothing in there. The ones that were in there, the 9%, were doing really good results-wise. Fitness. Group B, 90 days of the gym plus 30 days of mental gym, we had 91% left. So we only had a 9% dropout, right? Complete bat face. The reality is that we had to do what was the variable is that 30 days of mental work. And that variable was this: let's build desire. Humans need to be linked to an intrinsic goal or a sense of desire or visualization system or something to create that need for sustainability. And that's what Group B did. So they knew when they would wear, feel, act, dress, kids, run, stairs, the whole lot. They knew that. So when their body was feeling the pain, they were connected to something greater and bigger. Whilst we're very smart people, and even they had a quit smoking book in the 70s. What were we doing? For 14 days, smoking your head off. On the 15th day, you would quit smoking. I think Alan Carr wrote that book. Why? Because for 14 days, he was building your life as a non-smoker. So by the time you got to the 15th day, that was already a fait accompli. You weren't disrupted at the end of your meal looking for a cigarette because your brain had already processed that routine. Why do smart people do the same old thing? Because they're not connected here. Their body is on the signal. Their body's doing the run, the body is doing it, but they've got no signal to the prefrontal cortex or the emotional side of the brain that says, "I want this. I want this." So what I say about this, we don't always have 30 days, 10 minutes a day. We don't always have that. But we got great results at 14 days. And all I want you to do this. If you want to change something, add something, delete something, remove something, or add someone to your life and you're afraid or you're fearful or lazy, put it here. Put it here. Put it here for 10 minutes a day, 4 days a week. Put it here. Don't do a single thing with your body until you put it here. Because when I work with athletes who are injured, what do injured athletes do? Segregated from the rest of the community. They're on different training plans, different training schedules. They're not on the fields. They're not doing it. They're exasperating the injury. And what is their brain focused on? Their disability. What happens? Twice as long to recover. So any athletes that I work with, their butts are on the side of that field and they're kicking goals. They're creating tackles. Yeah. And that visualization piece and also that scarcity piece when we sit there in our brain and we think, we can't have this, we can't have this. The reality is the second you say you cannot have something such as time or freedom or anything like that, is the second you want 3 times as much of it as you did any day that came before it. So don't say you can't and mustn't and shouldn't have something. Like my 20-year-old nephew was on a diet and he said, "I'm on a diet." I said, "Don't call it that." He said, "Why?" He said, "Because your brain is naturally wired to fear scarcity, because in the old days, in DNA, scarcity meant we die. So I want you to say, 'I'm choosing to have a healthy choice and a healthier lifestyle,' therefore your brain doesn't have a scarcity technique. So do so much with this before you
Yeah.
engage anything from the neck down." And that's why smart people do the same thing over and over again because they're not connected. Not here, not there.
Yeah.
No
Milo,
connection.
it's fascinating. Something I learned recently from my wife. She runs a little business on the side, and she's a lifestyle nutritionist.
Nice.
Because what she worked out was if she didn't understand the desire, if she had a
Yes.
patient in, once she was like, I feel a bit old, a little bit overweight, a little bit, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I can fix all that. What's the desire? Oh, I want to be able to play with the grandkids. Ah,
Yes.
okay, right. So let's understand what that smells and looks and feels like. Then we can build a plan to get you there. But without that, this just like general motif of I want to be healthy is like, like I'm going to drop it the minute anything exciting comes along.
Yeah. And there's also a thing that sits beneath our psychology called the secondary gain. Secondary gain is if I want diet, fitness, and health, but I'm not getting it, yet I keep saying that I want it. And my first thought of the day is how uncomfortable I am in my own body. And my last thought of the day is how uncomfortable I am in my body. Why don't we change anything about that? Number one, that thought of the morning and the thought of the evening has become your best friend, and your life would be lost without it. Number one. Number 2, you get paid off. You get a payoff for not changing something about your life. And the payoff for that, and even myself, I could be thinner, healthier, and all of those things, less planes, more sleep. I could do all of those things. But what's my payoff? Laziness, Netflix, watching some trash television show. I could be in the gym, but I would literally rather be watching The Ultimatum or some Real Housewives somewhere for some kind of brain numbing exercise because that is my payoff. So unless I'm dead set clear about my payoff, I will change nothing about that desire.
I mean, my takeaway from that is I'm relieved you're as human and fallible as the rest of us. That like you've worked so hard to get stepping degrees and become an expert in your field, but you doom scroll like the rest of them, watch utter
Yep.
trash.
Yep.
That isn't intellectually stimulating. It's just mind numbing, and sometimes that's okay.
It's life gratifying. It makes me look at my life and think it's pretty damn good.
It's just those things that you don't show anyone else. Like, what did you do when you got a bit of time on your hands? You're like, you do not want to know the crap that I'm
I
watching.
admire anybody that's not drawn to car crash TV, but I am drawn to car crash TV. I always have been, I always will be. It is my de-stressing exercise. It is my laugh. My husband hates every inch of it, but he can watch his documentary on birds in
I was
another
gonna
room.
say, it's like when my wife captured me watching like unfinished engineering projects from the 80s, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm not in control of the remote. I am, but I'm not. I don't know why I'm watching it. I really
I
don't
don't
know."
need 5 minutes alone, I'm good.
Yeah. Milo, with that 75% ish, like the hard wiring, is that truly hardwired, or is it malleable, and can we start to are the hacks
Yeah.
or interventions we can put in place to just be a little bit more open?
It's the nature nurture piece of the way that the
Yeah.
human brain is within its existence, right? So that reptilian brain, the fight, flight, and freeze, that very thing that keeps us alive is always gonna be there. That is as hardwired. For some people are naturally born more optimistic, more opportunity, more, and some people are more risk orientated. It's not hardwired in everybody, but awareness, acceptance, and change. If you're aware that you're not gonna wake up as Mary or Max Sunshine every day where the birds are singing and everything's wonderful, if you're aware of that, then you can accept that there are varying levels of your mood, happiness, discomfort, everything else, and you can choose to opt in or out of that. So we are hardwired for risk. We are hardwired for uncertainty. That means that we have to consciously, and I mean consciously, so 92 to 95% of the thoughts that you have today will be the same as tomorrow. And if you have 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, you're on a loop. We're all on a loop. Loved or cared for anyone with Alzheimer's, you see that loop in living color. Now, and if you've offered a 4-year-old a cookie, can I have a cookie, can I have a cookie, we're all on a loop. Now, if I feel a certain way about my life, my body, my marriage, my job, my strategy, my existence, my career, I feel a certain way and I don't do anything with that, but I feel a certain way, but I'm gonna wake up every single day feeling that exact same way. The reality is, what scripts do I wanna break? Because 'Cause I'm on a script. We're all on a script that I can choose purposely in my numbering system when I brush my teeth. I can choose which script needs some attention and which script I choose to break. Now, on any given day, that script could be different. So I've been in the Middle East. I got home 2 days ago. I haven't seen my kids for 8 days. My script right now is the world's best mother. What did that mean this morning? Cocoa Pops for breakfast. That's not really allowed in the normal way of world, but Cocoa Pops for breakfast. But I am questioning my scripts often because we run on repeat, and it's not
Yeah.
what I always want.
There's a lot in there, isn't there? Because it's the agency thing again, but almost in a different manifestation of going, if you understand that repeat motion, if you never intervene, don't be surprised when it's 99% of the same day in, day out. In fact,
Yeah,
it's like accept that, but that intervention of going, accept, like just understand, and then change. Like you're like, oh, I can see what's happening. I can understand why it's happening, and I'm choosing to try something different instead.
correct. I remember when I did my training, so I used to do a lot of different training in psych. I went into marriage counseling for a bit, more for a point of interest. And there were so many people that I saw that it's like, well, we got married, didn't we? And they're 20 years in thinking that that was enough. That's it. That's it. That means that we don't have to evolve anything. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to discuss anything. We don't have to confront anything. We don't have. And I'm sitting there thinking, why do you feel blindsided by somebody's need to evolve and you've just wanted to stay the same? And this happened more times than you can imagine. There were also in my marriage counseling days, which was short lived, but I did specialize in infidelity. And infidelity was really quite I mean, the recipe of it each time was the same. It's the same. The causal factors of infidelity remain the same. And that is I am unable to internally validate myself. So I will find an object to do that for me. And that's what it is. Now, if you're most of us that are married for a long time, and I'm one of them, we have this beautiful state of neutrality. We're on this dotted line of neutrality, right? Now, I'm happy with the neutrality, but some people are not. And that also means that if you meet somebody inadvertently, we have a thing called an awakening where all of a sudden the butterflies in the stomach and this adrenaline start to happen. We want to chase it, all right? It becomes
Wow, right.
addictive and we
Comes
want to
the
chase it.
desire.
Exactly. We haven't felt that for quite some time. So whether you're single or still within a marriage with that awakening, we then have no ability to minimize that or walk away from it because we've now become addicted to the awakening. And that's kind of what happens quite often. It's desire.
It kind of, yeah, it makes It makes a lot of sense because the other parallel to that I've been reading about is if you attach your worth onto the other, not yourself. So I really, yeah, the idea that true love is not the feeling you have for another person. It's the fact that you realize you can be your true, unfiltered, unadulterated self, and you actually weirdly fall in love with yourself. And once I understood that, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, the freedom, the liberation of that. You associate the value of that with the other person, which is great, but like it's a you thing as well.
That's right, it's also a massive self-sabotaging technique. If you
Oh,
give your power
tell me
to
more.
somebody else and that power sabotages that and you know that they're capable of sabotaging that, then there you are. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy and a cycle that you set up long ago.
That makes yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I just want to go on a quick tangent.
Yeah.
I kind of partially mentioned at the start of the show, one of your many jobs, obviously marriage guidance, counseling, sports, a whole lot of other stuff. Is
A very short
criminal.
marriage counseling, by the way, and
That's
I
all right.
was
Yeah,
good at it.
let us say it was intriguing, but you're like, I'm going to leave that field. Was criminal profiling.
Yeah.
Um, I but the only time I've heard of criminal profiling before I met you was the 1990s English TV show Cracker, Robbie Coltrane, which I was addicted to
You're
because it
not
was the
that
most, oh my God, it's the most fascinating show at the time. And I was just like, wow, like just indulge us for a few minutes. Like what is criminal profiling and how does it link to your studies, like to your expertise?
So some people work in the criminal system, whether that be FBI profiling or whether that be with cold cases or working with the police force on a particular scene and what type of person committed that particular crime. But all we're basically doing is analyzing evidence to create a profile of human behavior. So it's predictive, in a certain sense, and it's also analytically understanding how and why in the faculties of human behavior that we know of, why anyone would commit that. Now, the reality is as well is that in the way that I use it sometimes is I look at cold cases or cases of people that are professing innocence in enormous ways, Freedom Project, death row, you name it. And it might mean that that case is being looked at maybe not so thoroughly by a number of people, or it's been held by a case file person that's had it for 10 years and no longer sees the blind spots. So my job is to look at things with fresh lens to say, has this been investigated? Did we ask this question? Let's ask the witness these particular things because this link is missing. It's that predictive human behavior sense. And from a if I convert that over into, I guess, corporate leadership, I know how a culture or a business is going to behave based on a series of events. And whether that be a CEO change or a C-suite change or a bad news story or whatever that might be, if we pull this lever, all of these elements are likely to change. And that's kind of how I use it most of the time.
It's fascinating because I'd imagine sometimes those things have quite a timeline. Like in companies, the event can occur, the commensurate reaction to that event can be quite delayed. You're like, oh, we lost a leader this quarter, nothing went wrong. You're like, no, but this quarter was in the bag ages ago. You're going to feel that in 9 months' time. And by the time you do, you can't come back in time and fix it.
And I totally love working with organizational psychologists and but this is a little bit different to that. This is the many levers that will pull that will might work on culture contagion, group think or group process, building the war against. If somebody is not liked or followed, let's have a look at the evidence of why that is. And the reality as well, which nobody consultants can say, but somebody within a business can't, is will they ever follow person X? And the answer may very well be no. So you're doing all that you can in training and creating, and but the reality is exit stage left is probably the best option.
Yeah, that's well. That takes us nicely on to topic number two: belonging beyond safety. So the next evolution of leadership. I think in the sort of coaching and mentoring I'm doing right now, the leaders I'm working with are under an amount of pressure I've not seen in my career. The economic pressure, the technological pressure changes, AI, political pressures, uncertainty and instability, and a whole lot of stuff, and they're really feeling that from all angles. From your standpoint, Milo, what does this next evolution of leadership look like? And maybe what are some of the behaviors we need to drop because they worked in the past, and what, and how do we, I don't use the word reinvent, but like, how do we keep ourselves relevant as leaders in this current environment?
Yeah. Well, I think that everybody is, I mean, in my observation, people are talking quite a bit about, it's very windy where I am, and my whole lounge covers just outside just blew off. I don't even know where they went, but hopefully not on somebody's head. But um, everybody's talking at the moment about psychological safety, and I understand that. Psychological safety is the ability to speak without fear. But belonging means that not only can I speak without fear, but I am valued and connected here. So without belonging, psychological safety is permission to exist, not an invitation to engage. And what we really need people to do right now is to completely engage. And what we need to know as well is that belonging is a survival mechanism. It's not a soft skill. So if people don't feel that they belong, and their brain kind of activates this threat response where disengagement and withdrawal and detachment quickly follow. And when people experience belonging, they activate this dopamine and oxytocin. And why do we need that? Because it fosters trust, collaboration, and commitment. And it also creates that strategic intent. So the brain itself treats a lack of belonging in the same grain as social rejection or physical pain. And we have to be mindful of that as leaders. Like, it's no longer about the command and control. The younger generation are lacking resilience. We know that. We have to be better at this stuff if we're going to create this collaborative environment that thrives, rather than this, I just need to survive here, which is what's happening right now.
It like everything you just said is like, if I flip it round, is truly fascinating because I'd say most sort of SVP C-suite leaders I'm working with right now, companies of all social sizes, we need more trust, more collaboration, better ways of like working across the organization. But like, extrapolate all the things you said, but all the things you said are at the back end of your sentence. They're starting with that and saying, how do we pull these levers without realizing there's symptoms, not a cause? The cause
Yeah.
is, if you don't have that sense of belonging as the catalyst or amplifier, you're literally going to change your tooling, you'll change your ways of working, and you'll change your process and your people, and it'll be exactly the same.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I think it is hard. I mean, we're trying to get leaders of any generation to be more collaborative, kinder, empathetic, more aware. And now we're prescribing to a very dynamic, and I'm going to be controversial here, that a lot of the leaders that I work with that are above a certain age, and I'm going to go 40 plus, believe that the younger generation have had too much empathy and no accountability, and therefore lack resilience, and they're just out of control, right? And all I'm trying to say is, can I just explain the brain for a minute in general of any generation? If we explain the brain, it's not about making people better. It's about, these are the elements of peak performance. And when I go into an organization, I'm working with peak performance, not saying everybody's crap and we need to start again. But if you want an organization that profits, that works well with its people, that's culturally there, that's winning awards and everything else, here are the factors of peak performance, and belonging is one of them. And working with psychological safety is part of that. I'm in no way a soft and fluffy person. But the reality is, a lack of belonging lowers IQ and cognitive performance. A lack of belonging, uh, you know, creates this lack of hormones and neurotransmitters in the brain that says, "I don't wanna be here." It tells me that I can call in sick because no one cares if I do. I'm not engaged in any of it. Loneliness is the biggest killer of the human condition, and I'm now fostering that. Like, it's peak.
Yeah. It's funny because in that world, that person, it's right. I talked to some leaders recently about the sort of the death message, the death notice of silence. Because they're like,
Yeah.
oh, there was, this cohort. They always used to speak up and complain, and we were, but it's really good because they've not said anything recently, so they must be happy. I was like,
Yeah.
we might want to go and check. They might just have disengaged. They might have,
Amy
have
Edmonds
lost.
would tell you that, right? The
Yeah, there's
key.
lots of that sense of belonging. So they're like, "What's the point?" Like, I did speak up. I got
Yeah.
my knuckles wrapped. I won't do it again, and because they've lost that sense of belonging rather than they're happy. And I think it's easy
Well,
to
that
kind of get those.
Amy Edmondson coined psychological safety as part of her PhD research, right? And all she was saying was those people that reported mistakes often were the psychologically safe environment because they felt safe to do so. The mistakes were accepted and we could speak up and learn from them. Whereas she went into the research thinking that those people that were making less mistakes were the ones who were reporting them less. No, the silent ones are the deadly ones.
Yes. Yeah.
We
There's
also
a
know
message.
the X generation, they're not a silent generation. So
Oh,
digitally, they're not a silent generation. So if you have a workforce of under 40s that are being very, very silent, I'd take a long, hard look at that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's funny. It's you can easily misread that signal as being, oh, everyone's fine because
Yeah,
no one's done anything. You're like silence. Yeah, silence
like
is like a
everyone's
finesse,
on
isn't it?
seek now and they're,
Yeah.
acting stage left.
Yeah. Milo, when you talk about when you think about belonging, if you're a leader out there right now and you've got a sense that that is something that's maybe lacking, do you have to start with yourself first, or like what are some are there any kind of I don't want to be hacky with it because it's such a big important topic, but is there any steps that you can take to just start to see the light if you're feeling like you're spiraling down,
Yeah.
just to halt and maybe have a look back up?
So there's a way to go backwards in order to look forwards and without, hacking away at this. Yale did an experiment with babies, and they basically asked babies to pick a toy, a teddy bear in the blue, teddy bear in the orange. And the child was first asked to pick, do you want this treat or this treat? So let's just say M&Ms or jelly babies. Now, if the baby picked jelly babies, great. Then the toy was into the jelly babies or the toy was into the M&Ms. 87% of the kids chose the toy that chose the same thing they did. All right. So the teddy bear that was also into the jelly babies, 87% of babies liked. The third part of that experiment was, are you okay for the bear that liked the M&Ms to be harmed in any way? And again, the results showed that 87% of the time the answer was yes. What does that show us here in the sense of belonging? That adults and children, we're hardwired to prefer people who, even seemingly innate,
Yeah.
have similarities with us.
And you
And
bring
if
them in. You bring them into the fold.
that's right, you bring them in. It's not saying you hire all mini-me's. I'm saying you need to identify similarity with someone in order for them to be in your inner circle of trust. Now, if it is ingrained in our hardwiring from birth, the preference for those who behave similarly to us, then it is also ingrained to exclude those that don't. All right. Now, what we know is that our thoughts are, if we are hardwired for belonging from birth, we seek connection and safety in groups, but we're also hardwired to protect our sense of belonging. And that means that sometimes we're rejecting or excluding others who do not fit in our in group. The action from that is ask yourself, does that apply to you? And have you ever felt excluded for any reason? And are you doing the same for others? Because Brené Brown said it best in this, the opposite to belonging is fitting in. So if you are a leader that is fostering or charging people to fit in, then you are in no way fostering the
No.
sense of belonging.
No. You're actually creating a compliance adherence regime of probably of mediocrity because there's no divergent thought, there's no challenge to that.
Yep.
It's just do the needful, do the needful.
Yeah. And there's a lot of fitting in going on right now,
Yeah.
whether that be through an expectation or people have that imposter syndrome to not show up to swipe their key and turn into somebody else as they walk through the door. But great leaders that want to really look at the psychology of belonging is saying, am I asking people to fit in or am I really seeing each individual for who and what they are? Do I have an in group, which is fine if you do, not really fine, but fine if you do. The reality is, can anyone break through that? So if I'm on the out group, what would that feel like to be in my team if I'm out there? And is there ever any way in? Or what changes do I need?
There's a brilliant layer of like inception empathy in there, which is let's assume everyone's got an inner group and an outer group because I kind of feel like to some extent most people probably have.
Yeah.
It Imagine how good it feels when you're in the inner group, yay. Imagine how fun feels for the outer group. They're the people you've pushed to one side. But how does it feel for you when you're in the outer group? It's not that you're either in the, like, you're in both. You're in someone
Yeah.
else's out. How does that feel? Horrible, right? You've now got empathy for the people you pushed aside, but that's cycle is fascinating because I imagine that that can spread throughout an organization super quickly.
Yeah, totally. If you wanna, I mean, even test yourself a little bit, I mean, this research goes way, 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 way back to, I think, 1972 when they did the Stanford experiment. Great movie, rerun a number of years ago called The Experiment. Watch that. Watch that film and really sit there and think to yourself, "Is this possible?" And the answer is yes. Because in the experiment, the in group, such as the guards versus the out group, which are the prisoners, supposed to be a 2-week experiment, lasted 5 days. And the dysfunction started within the first 24 hours. They forgot that this was an experiment, and they started to become these people. That's how quick the human condition can create a new normal, and we're not questioning the normal anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I get. Yeah, and I think it just the sheer rate of change people are going through now, fitting in, I think is a maybe a slower, fast step to obscurity, right? You like if you're a business and all you do is comply and adhere and you stay within the mold of what you already have done,
Yeah,
and the world around you changes, then you're anchoring to the wrong moment.
totally agree. My generation, the X's, I mean, we have much more, focus and loyalty, you could say, and I'm really grateful for this job, but the younger generation, I mean, they don't have to put up with this, and they're not going to. Like, it's their tribe. They're always looking for the tribe, and if you're not gonna be the tribe, you're gonna lose some great talent, right? And they're gonna sit there in that interview, and they're gonna be interviewing you, right? Once upon a time, I went for an interview in an investment bank. The guy that was sitting across from me had his legs wide open, his arms behind, he's swinging on his chair, and he says to me, "Why would I hire you?" And I was just looked at him and I said, "Why would I work for you?" Same question. I'm happy to answer you. Like, and the fact that the person with him thought that he was toxic, they're like, "I love her. Well, I love her." But that shouldn't have been why I got the job.
No, no, it's really that a few years ago, someone who's coaching me gave me the advice to always treat interviews as a two-way process. But it actually became part of my selection bias because I would say to candidates, "This is a two-way process." Some of them were like, "Oh, this is awesome," and lean in. Others are like, "No, I'm here to be interviewed." I was like, "No, I also want you to do your own due diligence. Is this the right environment for you to thrive? And if you're not thinking about that, I don't think you're going to thrive here. Like if you're passive to this, it's kind of not going to work." Ah,
I
I
know, but truth be told, I mean, in the leadership realm, and I work so much in coaching and leadership, the command and control is still relevant. When the share price is there and you're completely and utterly driven to it, and we can say that we're the most collaborative leader until it's 4 o'clock on a Friday and we've got to deliver a
yeah,
result. And
like
it's
a
like,
verbal
do
function back.
I see. So the inconsistency of leadership is what I'm seeing hugely
Yeah.
right now.
There's an addendum to that that I've witnessed probably in the last 9, maybe 12 months is, I don't know if this is true or not. I People that have a sense of belonging to their craft or to their function, but not outwardly. And so it creates the command and control is reinforced. Like if I'm a designer and I'm with other designers, I'm good because I belong with you, but I belong with you at the exclusion of the engineers. Ooh, evil engineer. You're like, oh, okay. You have to work together. And the engineers are like, no, no, we're fine. We belong. We just hate the designers. And you're like, if you two cohorts can't get belonging together, there is no
Yeah.
organization. Like you're
Yeah.
not in a battle. There's no war here.
No, and if we think about that, it's so intrinsic in the human condition to own your patch, cover it over, like, that's nobody's sisters, they're all doing this, and we've all got the same plate of food, but you're doing this so no one can see what you ate first and what you got left, right? That's what it is. We're born to do that. So, we have not clicked onto the fact that asking Tom, Mary, and Sam to look at our piece of work only makes that piece of work a better piece. We're all afraid that they're gonna judge us or that you're inadequate or that they're gonna see something, they're gonna dob on us and it's like, why? Like, there's so many great
Yeah.
leaders, ones that are sitting at the table sharing the
Yeah, and
best
it's
of.
gonna but it's like the scarcity mindset whenever that kicks in, and you're like, "No, there's an abundance here." There's not the on the example you just gave, the and I don't know where the quote's from, but it came out of Dan Pink's mouth when I met him a few years ago. I was talking to him about, like, how I was struggling in certain meetings, and he's like, "Dom, stop." He's like, argue like you're right, listen like you're wrong. And I was like, what? And he's like, and he told me, and I was like, shit, I argue like I'm right and I listen like I'm right. And then I was really angry, and I was like, "How is it you just literally dropped 6 words and completely changed my life?" But it was fascinating because I was like, "He's not telling me to stop putting my point forward. I should, with passion and vigor, and then shut this and open these and invite people in, because they will make the idea better." The thing is, I have to accept by the end of that time together, the idea went with the same one I walked in with, and it's not my baby. Right? I've got 2 actual babies downstairs. The idea was just an idea. Like again,
Yeah,
as you start with,
designed for everything.
yeah, letting go of the ego. I mean, you said at the start, like, let go of the ego, and suddenly things change. So your final chapter,
And on the
Milo.
opposite
Um,
around of ego is vulnerability, right?
yeah,
And some you just can't do that. So ego vulnerability, we waver somewhere here or we go, we over index here. But great leadership is the one that's on this end of the scale.
yeah, yeah. And I think we all know when we've felt that from others. It's very sort of warming and
Yeah.
authentic. Um, your last chapter is where you put your mind, your body will follow.
Yeah.
Um, help us understand that one. What does that mean?
So, as I said, the over indexing on negative thinking, what I call red arrow thinking, which is it comes 5 times faster than our ability to rationalize or see positive psychology. White arrows are there, we just don't go looking for them because we're hardwired for the red. Now, I think if we know this, my scientific self is saying to you, go looking for the white arrows. They're slower, but they're more rewarding and more chemicals and everything. Every other reward comes with it. And then a number of years ago, there was a lovely woman by the name of Ellen Langer, who was a prominent psych at Harvard. And she took 8 elderly gentlemen out of God's waiting room because they were ready and willing, and all they wanted was death. Converted monastery, New Hampshire, converted it back to 1959. So, no mirrors, all decor, all food, all clothing given to them, 1959. Now, these men were frail on day 1. Day 1, faces photographed. Day 4, faces photographed. All photos given to an independent group who knew nothing. That group believes that the day 4 photos of these men living in 1959 were taken 8 years ago. So the reverse aging of the physical self happened instantly. Now, come day 14, these men that had walked in on their walking frames and wheelchairs and 14 days of living in 1959 in the heyday, these frail men retested dexterity, posture, gait, sound, smell, the whole lot, right down to cognitive speed and memory, and it increased between 68 to 75%. And on day 15, these men that were frail played an impromptu game of touch football on the front lawn. Now, in her book called Counterclockwise, she definitively proved, which is what I work with greatly in sports, is that where you put your mind, your body will follow. Where you put your mind, your body will follow. And if you want to test it yourself without converting yourself back to 1959, for you and all of your listeners, when you get off this podcast, when you get off this stream, I want you to visualize in great depth yourself holding a lemon. And that lemon has a smell, and if you squeezed it into your mouth, it has a taste, that it runs down into your throat, that it has a certain effect on your gums, that your stomach ulcer is pulsating. You've got all of these things. Your mind's waiting for the tequila shot to come after, whatever it's going to be, but your brain is in the lemon. You will begin to have every effect of that, right down to the mouth, the flavor, the taste, the stomach, the whole lot. Where you put your mind, your body will follow. So, from a behavioral perspective and a leadership perspective, if your mind thinks that you're an idiot or someone else is, if you think that you're completely incapable or not good enough or imposturing, if you think that no one but you is good enough or that you have some kind of ego that's overspilling to everyone's reality, everything about your body and the bodies of others will detect that fellowship and they're not going to be with you. So be mindful that where you put your mind, your body will follow. And in the positive psychology, keep your mind in the white arrows. Makes a very big difference to the way you live your life.
How do you spot them? How do you spot those white arrows?
Well, the white arrows are the possibility, the optimism that I get that this is a hurdle, but I'm actually going for it, right? And when I see it in organizations, whether they're offsites or other, and they have these strategy days, right? We all do it. We go to the Hunter Valley and we have this amazing strategy day. And what I notice very quickly is red arrow dynamics. So somebody has a great idea and everybody else has got a reason why that's not going to happen. We don't have time, quality, space, money, the whole lot.
Tried it before, doesn't work. Yeah.
Exactly. We tried it before. We've done this. It doesn't work. And I sit there and think, red arrow, red arrow, red arrow. And then I have to raise to myself and to the room. I say, guess what? What you're doing right now is neurological laziness because that's how we're made. We're made to have that thinking. We're made to have those objections. That the great entrepreneurs, the great organization, and the great leaders are the ones that recognize the hurdle and think, but I can go around that. There's a solution. There's another way to see it. And most leaders don't do that. They think
It's
that their value is in
yeah.
the risk, the
Well,
uncertainty,
yeah,
the
because that's part of the posturing as well. Like, here's what I know, even though I'm red arrowing, here's what I know, and therefore look at me, how good I am. Because the alternative is, and it's funny, there was a session I was facilitating recently. There was two phrases we used, and I didn't understand the red arrow thing at the time, but to break people out, one was what would need to be true for that to happen. So whatever ideas someone came up with, you're like, oh, let's just assume that's going to happen. What would need to be true? And that just sort of rewired the brain. The other one was just the phrase, how might we? Whenever someone suggested something, instead of saying we can't, like, but if we had to, how might we? Just let's just
yes.
play with
Yeah.
it. Be very playful. There is a, but it was exposing
If
because
you
it
want
needed the
some people
relevance and
just
stuff.
go, ugh.
Right, because the ones who are knowers are like, well, this is a waste of time. The
Yep.
ones who are seekers are like, oh, this is a fun game. Let's play.
Yeah.
Like, who
Yeah.
knows where
Yeah.
this is going to go? Let's go on the adventure. But it's you can see those mindsets manifest in very different ways.
Yeah. I see the shutdown of those particular people, and that's okay. We all need the factory workers to keep the lights on. We also
Yeah,
need the thinkers that are actually gonna take us to another place.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, there's a role for everyone in there. Milo, I could talk to you for weeks, let alone hours or days or months. You're an absolutely fascinating and beautiful human being. So, as a thank you for your time, we'd love to do a donation on your behalf. Can you talk to us a little bit? I know it's personal to you, but a little bit about the charity you've chosen and why, please.
Yeah, so I've chosen brainwaves. As a neuroscientist, ironically, I finished my degree the day before my first child was born. And my first child was born with the rarest brain condition there ever was. So she was born with only the left side of her brain, nothing in the right. So she is, from a neuroscience perspective, you've got a certain amount of time, as in 0 to 5, to level up and teach the remaining brain everything there ever was, but it's going to take some work. And now Harper is 10 years old. She's a soccer playing, sass spilling, goes to an academic school, incredible. Memory terrible. And from the age of 0 to 4, every morning you're like, good morning, darling. Your name is Harper and I'm your mum. And then one day she wakes up and it's like, good morning, mum. And your life changes in that particular moment. So Brainwaves works with children and they work with children with neurological disorders, and some of them are extremely severe. Whilst ours was on paper, it is long term. We've been able to work beautifully with this. And the Hawaiian, I mean, the scientist in me or the spiritualist in me is like, I'm meant to have this child. Child is meant to be mine. And I don't know anyone that could have managed because there is not another condition in the world like that. Don't know
Yeah,
anyone else that.
when you mentioned the word irony, I'm like, it's kind of ironic, but also not. I can't imagine her landing in a better set of hands.
No, and she thinks she's gonna be Sam Kerr, she's a striker, she's
Yeah,
incredible, she goes to a normal mainstream school, an academic school. She gives me enormous amounts of cheek,
lovely.
I couldn't ask for anything else.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we will do a donation on behalf of you to Brainwave, a great character by the sounds of it, a great cause. Milo, for the millions of people that are now deeply curious about your work, how do they best find you or discover any of your content or the fun, random stuff that you share?
Well, somebody asked me the other day, "Your LinkedIn's pretty lean." I said, "Can you understand that my job's about discretion?" Like, I'm not
Yeah, it's
supposed
really hard. It's hard for you to have use cases. Here's this absolute
That's right.
destroyed mentalist that I've dealt with it.
Like, don't exist. When I sat there in the AFL drafting players, my name is Catherine, right? I don't exist in this particular world. So discretion has been key, but milowilkinson.com is a place that you'll find me commonly. There's lots of things that are happening. I'll load, any chats that I have up onto that. And usually some of my keynotes can be seen by purely just Googling my name.
Yeah, there's lots of your stuff online. You've got a great resources section on your website.
Yeah.
Thanks if you interested in Milo, give her a look. Milo, thank you again so much for your time. Absolutely wonderful conversation. I feel like I've learned a shed load, and I know our audience will too. That is all from this episode of Experts Unleashed. Thank you very much, Milo Wilkinson.
Yay! Thank you, Dom.